Alright, this module is all about purpose, and I am a huge fan of humanistic psychology, and in fact much of what I talk about in this video will come from Maslow's hierarchy of needs, huge component in humanistic psychology. And it's the idea that we are all unique individuals and we're all on our own individual path trying to fulfill our needs one level at a time. Now, you don't have to prescribe to everything that Maslow believed in that hierarchy of needs to be able to take some nuggets of wisdom from it, if you will, and hopefully that's what I will try to do in this video. One of my favorite things about Maslow's ideas is that of self-actualization, and I think this is pretty heavily tied to purpose. So there's four components of self-actualization that I want you to be aware of. First, let's define it. It's achieving your peak potential, being able to find and express the best you that there is. So how do you do that? Well, there's four components that we'll talk about. And the first is being reality-centered. And this is exactly what it sounds like, being able to determine what is real from what is fake. Now, we're not just talking about reality versus hallucinations. We're talking about people and situations that are genuine versus those that are not. And for those of us who've lived a little bit, we know that's not always as easy as it seems. But the first component of self-actualization is being reality-centered. The second is being problem-centered. Now, this is seeing your problems as potential conflicts with solutions, things that can actually lead to positive things in your life, benefits in your life. Again, you're allowed to be upset about them and have emotional reactions, but the idea is that problems don't become something you avoid, they become something you accept as part of reality, and that you challenge, and that hopefully you manage to get something from. The next is that of unhostile humor. Now, why are you not just saying humor, you may be asking yourself? Well, because there's a lot of things that can be funny. There's a lot of ways you can achieve humor. But specifically, to achieve self-actualization, you have to have a sense of humor about life in general, and most importantly, about yourself. So this is the idea that you don't put other people down, you're able to laugh about your own shortcomings, you're able to laugh about the state of the world in a way that's not negative, or in a way that's not conflicting, or in a way that's just not creating some kind of negative attitude towards anyone. That's not always easy to do, potentially with modern humor. So when you're looking in your world and you're identifying things that make you laugh, try to see if you can differentiate between what is unhostile humor and maybe what is something entirely different. And then the fourth component of self-actualization is this idea of acceptance. Just being able to accept things the way they are, particularly, again, yourself. Identifying your weaknesses, things you can improve. Identifying your strengths, that's important too. But just kind of accepting the world around you. There is a motto, grant me the strength to change what I can and the wisdom to know the difference. I totally messed that up. Give me the strength to change what I can, accept what I cannot, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's it. But from a psychological standpoint, that really is a huge part of acceptance, which is a huge part of self-actualization. Now, self-actualization is not the only part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs that I tie to the concept of purpose. The next is that of peak experiences. And these are the moments that bring you such almost indescribable joy that they really optimize your existence. We're not just talking about a good day, or when someone gives you a compliment, or when you wake up in a good mood. These are those moments, those situations that create such a positive experience for you. So I'm going to give you 4 steps that I've kind of culminated from different sources to help you identify what your peak experiences are. And you may be thinking, well, wouldn't I know what those are? Not necessarily. Sometimes we go through life just kind of living in the moment and experiencing things, and we don't take the time to figure out what it is that brings us joy and what it is that we can take in this positive direction. So the first is to reflect. The first way to identify your peak experiences is to engage in reflection, just to sit down and think about your life. Think about the moments that have brought you happiness, that have brought you this extreme joy. The second step is to identify the triggers. So sometimes we use the word triggers in a negative circumstance, like identify the triggers of that problem, but we can use the same concept to find happy things. So think about those peak times in your life. Who were you with? What were you doing? Where were you? What month of the year was it? All of those characteristics can play a role, sometimes in ways we're not aware of. So I'll always encourage people to just write down your peak experiences and then describe them as if they were kind of news briefs. Where were they happening? Who were you with? What time? What month? All of that stuff. That can give you some insight into the next step, which is to increase the opportunity for those peak experiences. So once you've identified what it is that brings you joy, what it is that brings you happiness, look at those triggers and see if you can increase them in your life. If there's something that brings you happiness, find ways to put it into other areas of your life. If it's someone, spend more time with that person. But the idea is to increase the opportunity for those peak experiences. And then the last step is to connect them to your purpose. So again, purpose means something different to everyone, and I'm not going to bore you with a dictionary definition. But what I want you to think about is, what is the purpose of your life? What does that mean for you? What are you trying to achieve in your life? For some people, it's a career. Fantastic. Tie those peak experiences to it in some way, shape, or form. For some people, it's a hobby. Same thing. For some people, it's family. Same thing. You just want to connect those peak experiences with your purpose. I'll give you an example. My passion in life has always been music and listening to music and being at concerts. That is my peak experience. That is when I'm at my most happy. I'm not even thinking. I'm just feeling and enjoying life. But for the longest time, I just relegated that to a tiny part of my life. And it's only been in the last few years that I identified the triggers and I increased the opportunity and I tied it to purpose. So I started using it in my classes. I started using it to help students understand material. I started blogging about it. I started creating a podcast and a radio show. So I increased the opportunity for these peak experiences, and now I have them much more frequently. And they're tied to my purpose. I feel like I know what I want to do with my life, and I've connected my peak experiences to it. Now, the trick is also to understand that, once again, your perspective is limited. That's one key part of humanism. Yes, you are unique, but we can learn from listening to others and thinking about what they've experienced. So I want to give you 4 steps to discover new peak experiences, because there might be something out there that would change your life that you just haven't yet felt. And the first step is to have humility. So this is to understand that you are not an expert on life, that there could be things that you don't know. Most of you watching this are aware of that, and you're thinking, well, duh. But believe it or not, there are some people who are resistant to any sort of advice because they think they are the expert on their lives. And that may be true, but that doesn't mean that we can't learn something from other people's experiences. The second step is to be open. You have to be open to trying something new. Even if it sounds scary, or even if it's something you're not used to. As long as there's no identifiable negative consequences, it can be a risk that you take or something that you try. Doesn't mean it'll lead to a peak experience. You may hate it, but it could be something that changes your life. One of my best friends encouraged me to try CrossFit with him because for him it's a peak experience. I tried it, I hated it, it wasn't for me. I like to work out in peace and quiet. I don't like people screaming at me. But I was open to the idea that maybe he was in on something that I wasn't that would affect me in a positive way. Other things in my life, peak experiences, I didn't know about until I tried them. So we just have to be open to the idea of trying other things. The third is to research. Your immediate circle of people in your life may not expose you to all the peak experiences that could impact you. So get on the internet, talk to different people, talk to teachers. Think about the classes that you're taking. Explore peak experiences that you hear about in the media. But the third step is to research. Look outside of your immediate area. Sometimes that immediate area can have a shared environment or a similar perspective, so we want to be able to get outside of that. And then the fourth is to put forth the effort. That's also true of your original peak experiences, by the way. We have to try to make these things happen. It's very rare that peak experiences just happen to us. It does involve some sort of effort. That sounds easy, and you're thinking, well, of course I'd want to do peak experiences. They're awesome. I love them. But especially when you're having a stressful time period, or if you're suffering from something like depression or anxiety, we can forget that those peak experiences can happen, and we may not feel like we can put forth the effort to make them happen. But the purpose is the key part of this. If you tie those peak experiences to your purpose, the things you do daily, then you actually find a way to not be able to avoid them. I've had bad days since I've started my radio show, but I have to actually get up and do it. And so that effort actually forces me to have something that I wouldn't have had otherwise, and it changes my mood and it brings me right back to my purpose and my happy place. So, hopefully, this has helped you glean some insight into self-actualization and how to identify and experience peak experiences in a way that can help you identify or support your sense of purpose.